Hey everyone, you are listening to Coffee with Gringos. I'm Ian Kennedy,
And I'm Paige Sutherland.
and today we have with us a very special guest. We have fellow dynamic English. Oh my God, are you kidding me?
Do you almost forget the name?
I did that with Andrew too, didn't I? I've
Uh,
had for doing that.
no,
That's so
you did it with Ted. It was actually no, yeah, you did it with
it was
Andrew.
Andrew.
He goes, I want to introduce Andrew. What's your last name?
Hey everyone, you are listening to Coffee with Gringos. I'm Ian Kennedy.
And I'm Paige Sutherland.
And today with us, we have a very special guest. We have fellow dynamic English teacher, fellow gringo, and good friend, Matt Gutman. Matt, welcome to the podcast.
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be on this podcast with you guys and share a little bit about my experience.
Great. And you doing okay in quarantine over there? We're all adjusting to this new life on our Zoom calls instead of in person. So you hanging in there all right?
Yeah, I'm hanging in there, kind of the same as everyone, just trying to get through this and pass the time. Yeah, everything's going well.
Good, very good. Well, like I said, we're really happy to have you. So, everyone, if you get lost, go online and check out that audio guide and transcript. Okay. So, Matt, since you're new to our podcast, how about you tell us just a little bit about yourself? So, where are you from? How old are you? Why did you decide to come to Chile? Just a little intro.
Perfect. So, yeah, like you said, Ian, my name is Matt Gutman, and I am 24 years old. It was actually my birthday last month. Love celebrating in quarantine, always fun. So, I am originally from Chicago, Illinois, in the United States. I have been living in Chile for about a year now, just a little over a year. And so I actually decided to come to Chile because I studied abroad here in 2016. I studied in Vina del Mar, and I kind of fell in love with the country of Chile, the people, the culture, everything about this country that made it so fun and that made me want to come back when I graduated college in 2018. So I've been living here for a year now. I started with Dynamic just a couple months ago. And yeah, I've been really enjoying it ever since. And, you know, it's been interesting working with my students on Zoom calls and not in person, but it's still enjoyable having that connection and being able to interact with students.
No, it's awesome. Do you so you studied abroad here in Chile. So is your Spanish learning mostly Chilean Spanish, or how was that adjustment when you moved?
So when I was here in 2016, I picked up a lot of Chilean Spanish, the pos, the cachais, and all that good stuff. And I majored in Spanish when I studied. I went to school in Denver, and so when I was in college, I also studied Spanish, which, of course, we're not learning Chilean Spanish in a university course. So it's kind of a mix, but I'd say like most people who have spent a lot of time in Chile, their Spanish has kind of become this mix of, the Spanish they learned in high school or college, combined with all of the kind of, the Chilenismos that we've picked up since living here.
Definitely.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. And it's very interesting, like go from learning in a formal sense, like formal Spanish, all the structures, make sure you have everything in the right place. And then you come to a place like Chile and they cut the end off of all their verbs, change the pronunciation, throw in these vocabulary words. And even for other Spanish speakers, native speakers, it seems to be a really hard dialect and accent even to get at first. So it's a real culture and language shock, even for people who have studied Spanish or have experience with it. So that's something I definitely felt when I first came here. So I always think it's funny to ask, what everybody's experience or what their perspective is on the language. So you make really
Yeah,
good.
of course. You go from like having like a ton of rules when you're like in a university class to coming down here and talking with people to having no rules pretty much in Spanish,
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
I
No,
have a
it was funny. I remember for Dynamic, they offer free Spanish classes. And when I first arrived, I took it and they were like, okay, like this is what they say in Spanish and this is what they say only in Chile. And it's not right. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah. Like I kind of compare Chilean Spanish to like Australian English. Like though we're speaking the same language, like I sometimes have trouble like understanding what an Australian is saying, which I feel like would be comparable to like, someone from Spain or other parts of South America hearing a Chilean speak and being like, what did they just say?
That's fair, yeah.
That's a really accurate comparison. I like that. Australian English. Yeah, that's really good. One more question. So when you were studying abroad, you said you were in Vina del Mar, and Vina del Mar is considerably smaller in size and a little bit different in geography to Santiago. In Vina, you have the beach life. It's a little more manicured, I would say. The city, it's a little bit nicer. So what do you prefer between the two cities? Do you like the big sprawling metropolis of Santiago, or do you prefer the more laid back Vina del Mar lifestyle?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. I'll always have love for Vina because living there is such a pleasure. To be able to have the beach, to not have it be as hot in the summer. It really is nice to have it be a bit smaller. And there are definitely times where I miss living in Vina. And of course, then having Valparaiso right next to it. But, at this point in my life, I feel like I really prefer the big city. I really prefer Santiago. I prefer that it's more diverse. You have so many different neighborhoods. And not to say that Vina doesn't have different neighborhoods, but like you said, Santiago is just so big and sprawling that, every day you could go to a new place and it never gets old. It's just it's very different. And I like having the big cities because you meet so many different people and there's always something going on in a big city, and it just feels like every day is kind of a new adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of big cities, you're from Chicago, which is actually one of my favorite cities.
Me
Tell
too.
us a little bit about Chicago for people who, are listening that have never been or don't know about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, Chicago it's a great city. We're not as fortunate as, maybe some places on the West Coast that have, that are really surrounded by nature. And we also don't have the proximity of being close to other major cities. Like if you were on the East Coast, for example, New York being close to Boston or DC or Philadelphia, where you can get around pretty easy. Chicago, we have Chicago being that big city, and that's kind of it. So, there's a lot of things I like about Chicago. For example, even though we don't have a lot of nature, we're right on Lake Michigan. Okay, so we got that in the summer. Some nice beaches, great food. So if you like deep dish pizza, which if you're Chilean, odds are you haven't had it, but deep dish pizza, delicious. A great nightlife and culture scene, a lot of great theaters, great venues for concerts. And, also what I love about the Midwest is we got that Midwestern charm, we're just generally nice people. Even though people sometimes say people from big cities are a little bit more self-centered, maybe conceited, us in the Midwest, we'll hold the door open for you. We always use our please and thank yous. Not to say people from other areas don't do that, but, in the Midwest, that's what we call the Midwest manners that we try and hold near and dear to our hearts.
No, it's so true. I'm from Boston, and I went to grad school at Northwestern out in Chicago, and Boston is, we're a bunch of assholes. So when people holding the door open for me, or like saying nice things, I'm like, what do you want? Why are you doing that? Like,
Yeah. Like if I said excuse me to you, you would like be like offended. Like what? Like what are you doing? Like it's just like I'm trying to get through, like, you know.
now
You'd
it's,
kick me in the shin and I'd probably apologize to you.
I love Midwestern people. They are just genuinely nice. Where in Boston, if you're nice, we're like, what's going on here? What's
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an
You're
ulterior
weak.
motive for that. Yeah. Yeah. Now you make a really good point, Matt. Like being a Chicago, or not a Chicago guy, but a Midwest guy myself, I'm somewhat familiar just from visiting the city, and it's remarkable for me to notice that, like for such a big city, people are, you know, more friendly. They do have that Midwest charm, those Midwest manners that we in the Midwest take a lot of pride in. And it's a little bit surprising. And like you say, not everywhere, not every big city has impolite people, but it's noticeable. It's noticeable in other places outside. So it's kind of a strange but nice fusion of big city culture with kind of small town manners, I guess you could say. So
Yeah,
it's
perfect.
just it's a nice hybrid for people visiting. So and I think something else that's interesting to note, you mentioned the great live music scene, lots of stuff like that. And for our listeners, Lollapalooza, Chile is a very big event. And it's important to note that Lollapalooza actually started in Chicago. So
Very
the
true.
birthplace
Good
of one
point.
of Chile's favorite concerts, favorite festivals, has its roots in your city. So
Yeah. I don't know many people who could say that they've been to Lollapalooza on two continents. So that's kind of I think that's a pretty big accomplishment for me. And yeah, like Lollapalooza, it's just like here in Santiago, you know, it's 3 days, so many people, you're just sitting in the hot sun all day, listening to music for 8 hours straight. And it's always a fun time.
and it's got a beautiful setting. It's in
You've
Grant
been here.
Park, right next to the lake. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I also have been to Lollapalooza in Chicago, and it was, you know, there and here in Santiago. And yeah, like you say, it's cool to say that, you know, you've been to both on both continents. So
Exactly.
it's cool everywhere, but there's something magical about it in Chicago. Just the setting, the atmosphere. It's definitely worth going to if you have the chance.
100%.
Yeah.
I feel like
And
too, with Chicago, like it's a big city, but I feel like it's like the perfect size. I always describe to people, I feel like it's like a New York, Boston mix, because you get the big city, you have the skyscrapers, you have the culture, the entertainment, the food, everything, but you don't feel as overwhelmed in New York City. Like New York City is like too many people, concrete jungle. But like I feel like Chicago is the perfect size where you like get the big city, but you can also not feel like you're in New York City.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that, you know, one of the nice things about Chicago, like most cities, is that while you do have that, you know, the main kind of hub of the city, what we call the loop in downtown Chicago, you know, that's, you know, you go there any day of the week and it's going to be crazy, whether it's with people working, whether it's with tourists, you know, that's that main part of the city. But then, you know, you have a lot of really pleasant neighborhoods where you have great restaurants, nice parks, not as many people. Maybe it's a bit more green. You have some more trees. Like it's not as, so you can have kind of, you know, the best of both worlds there, where you have that downtown experience, but you can also go to some really cool neighborhoods that are a bit more low key, that, you know, are a bit more diverse as well, and just kind of have, you know, some more to offer other than just those, like you said, when people think of big cities, they think skyscrapers, and, you know, when people think Chicago, they think Sears Tower. But, you know, it's not like you walk in every 40 feet, you're running into a skyscraper.
I do have to ask, I don't know about in Chile, but definitely here in the US, people who haven't been to Chicago are like, oh, Chicago, it's too cold, it's too windy. What's your reaction to that?
So too cold, like maybe. You know, I think that I've gotten used to those Chicago winters, just because, you know, I grew up with them. I do love the snow, and yeah. So I mean, the summers are really pleasant. And then, you know, fun fact about the too windy, even though, you know, Chicago's nickname is called the Windy City, it's not actually due to physically being wind. It's not referring to the weather. It's actually being called the Windy City because of our, our lack of, I'd say, trustworthy politicians. The Windy City is referring to the fact that, there's been a lot of controversies, a lot of scandals, whether it's with the mayor, the senators, or governors. Chicago politics has always been marred in a lot of controversy. So there's a little fun fact for y'all.
No, I like that. I learned that when I moved there too, because it is windy, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, you're gonna hate the winter." But I was like, "I'm from New England. I mean, this is not really any different."
Yeah, it's not too crazy.
Yeah, I think it gets a bad rep for bening so cold, but I don't think it's any different than New England or like the Midwest in general. If you go to Wisconsin.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's, it's cold. Like I would say, like the winters can get cold. So you can imagine, coming here to Santiago when like it's like 40 degrees in the winter and people are like, "Oh, it's freezing." I'm like, I'm walking out in shorts and a t-shirt. Like, are you kidding me? Like, guys, there's no snow on the ground. Like, this is nice. Like, this is not winter for me. So yeah, I've definitely kind of enjoyed, while I do miss the snow and I do miss kind of those, everything that comes with cold winter, the excuse to stay inside. When I was younger, going sledding, drinking hot chocolate, whatever it may be. I think I do enjoy having the winters be a little bit warmer here.
That is true. Yeah. And so, Ian, you want to start off some rapid fire?
I was just going to say, I think we're ready for a rapid fire question. So Matt, this is the first time that we've done this with a guest, but I think we might need to make it something regular in the future. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you a series of questions relating to Chicago. Okay. So you have two choices and you get, let's say, 1 or 2 seconds to give me a rapid fire answer. Okay. So we'll see how you do, and we'll get to know you a little bit better as the Chicagoan that you are. Okay. So
Perfect.
if you're ready, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Cubs or White Sox?
Cubs all day.
Illuminati's or Giordano's Pizza?
Illuminati's, easy.
Michael Jordan or Scottie Pippen?
It's got to be Jordan.
The Doan Observatory or the Shed Aquarium?
Shed Aquarium.
Winter or summer?
Summer.
Yeah.
Can't be beat.
Blackhawks or Bulls game?
Oh, it's a tough one. Blackhawks, just because the Bulls aren't very good right now.
Okay. And last but not least, what do we have here? Day at the beach or day at Lollapalooza?
Oh, day at Lollapalooza.
Good.
You can go to the beach any day of the summer. Lollapalooza only comes around, for 3 days in the summer.
I thought it'd be an obvious one knowing you as a music guy. So
of course.
Yeah, very good. So I'm trying to think, is there any other Chicago related questions we can ask?
Let me jump in here. What about jazz or blues?
Blues.
Blues?
That'd be blues. A lot of great Chicago, great blues scene, great jazz scene, and a lot of great blues bars in the city too.
No, that's what I loved about Chicago. There's always live music playing.
That's another good one.
How about Lincoln Park or Wicker Park?
At this age in my life, I'm going to say Lincoln Park, just because more of my friends live there at the moment.
South Side or North Side?
As a Cubs fan, also North Side.
Let's think. What are some other Chicago ones? Do you like the Sears Tower better or the Hancock?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's been a while since I've been to either of them, but I'd say Sears Tower.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the Hancock. It looks like something from Batman. Like it just looks.
True. It looks like it came straight out of Batman. I will say though, if being a tourist going to the Sears Tower, it's a must. It's just so massive. Now it's got the sky deck where you can you're standing on glass and you see the entire city below you. It's a pretty surreal experience.
It's the tallest one in the U.S., right? Or
I want to say there might be one taller right now.
Okay.
It used to be like in the early 2000s, I think it was. But I'm not positive.
Okay. I don't know if this is a comparison people say, but these are just the only schools I can really think of. Northwestern or U Chicago?
Oh, Northwestern. I grew up pretty close to Evanston, where Northwestern is located. So I grew up going to a lot of Northwestern college football games. Yeah, go Cats.
Is that like, what is the biggest rivalry when it comes to universities in Chicago? Or is it those two, or I don't know?
So that's kind of the thing, is that, Chicago, unlike Boston, it's not really the biggest college or university city. So, there are, Northwestern's probably the biggest, but then, if you're talking about like a state school, the University of Illinois, its main campus is, an hour or two south in a town called Champaign.
Mm-hmm.
So Northwestern, it's always kind of struggled to find a rival. And then, you've got some smaller schools downtown. You've got DePaul, like you said, University of Chicago, UIC, and, they're a little bit smaller. Obviously, University of Chicago is very prestigious. But yeah, Northwestern doesn't really have many rivals. I guess you could say University of Illinois, even though they're not as close by as, many other rivals.
Okay. All right. Yeah, good to know. I think,
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any other ones, Ian? I think we might be running out of our Zoom time.
It told me that we just got upgraded. We have unlimited minutes. It just said we're good. For me, at least. So I don't know. I also don't have a hard stop. Not that we're going to need more time, but I don't have a hard stop anymore. My class got rescheduled at noon. So,
I think maybe like one more and then we wrap it up. I feel like
yeah.
Is there one, Matt, about Chicago that we're missing? Because
or maybe we could even ask Matt, like, if a tourist was coming to Chicago, what are a couple places you would say are must-sees? Like you said, the Sears Tower is one.
That's a good question, yeah.
Because we have students who are like, if I go to Chicago, what the hell do I see? Because they don't really know much. So
yeah,
no, I mean, most people say that. Like,
yeah.
Did you want me to go into it?
No, Ian, you like just
yeah.
Pretend we I'll edit this out and then we'll just start up with Ian.
Yeah. Okay. So Matt, I get a lot of students that ask me about cities in the U.S. And when I tell them about the city, oftentimes they say, oh, it'd be great to go visit there, but what do I even do when I'm there? What do I see? What is the city about? So as a native Chicagoan, if you were to give some recommendations to a tourist, what are some must-see places, some absolute attractions to visit while in the city of Chicago?
Yeah, it's a great question. Chicago, I think, even though we're a very touristy city, sometimes people don't really think that Chicago has a lot to offer, but in reality, it does. So, for one thing, I would say, I think we mentioned the Sears Tower, now called the Willis Tower. It's got the sky deck, like we mentioned. That's a pretty surreal experience. It's an awesome time. Going to Millennium Park, we have the famous bean, which is a giant chrome bean, which might not sound that interesting, but it is pretty cool. It's very abstract, and it's part of a much larger park that has it's got a beautiful amphitheater, some very large and impressive fountains, and it's just all around just like a big sprawling park it's really nice, really right in the heart of the city. Go and have some deep dish pizza that I mentioned, because odds are you're not going to find it many other places. So, and like I said, I think Lou Malnati's is going to be your best bet to find some good Chicago deep dish style pizza. We got a lot of great museums as well. So like you had mentioned that the Shedd Aquarium, the Art Institute of Chicago, the Field Museum, where we've got, I think the Field Museum might have one of the largest full dinosaur skeletons, I think maybe in the world. And then the Art Institute, where you've got, so many famous paintings. You've got Seurat's paintings, you've got Picasso's works there. You've got the famous American Gothic, which is, the picture of that couple with kind of the old man holding a pitchfork. So that's really cool. If it's a nice day, go by the lake. I think it's always a really good option. Try and catch a Cubs game at Wrigley Field if you can. It's electric. And I'll end it with maybe saying Navy Pier. Navy Pier is a good time, especially if you have kids. A lot of great options for kids over down at Navy Pier, which is right on the water. It's beautiful, and sometimes it's got big conventions there as well. And they've got the famous Navy Pier Ferris wheel, so that's a really fun time as well. So I think there's a lot to do in Chicago, even though maybe we don't have that many known tourist locations like a place maybe that like Los Angeles or New York does.
Yeah, that's a really good description you put there. And I try to tell students as well, because, obviously students will say, I want to go to Miami, or I want to go to New York, or I want to go to LA, these typically very tourist, very big American cities. But there's more than a handful of slightly smaller cities that are really amazing. And so I try to just let students know about these other places that exist that aren't so, I guess, popular in tourism. So I always talk about Chicago, how great it is. So I think you've painted a better picture for our listeners and for us even as well. So I really hope people will kind of branch out of those big touristy places and try to explore some other places like Chicago and get a real taste of that nice Midwest manners that we're talking about.
Exactly. So, yeah. We don't have Disney, but we're still a fun place to visit.
That's a great phrase right there. I like it. Well, Matt, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate all the knowledge you've given us about Chicago, about yourself, and hope you stay safe and stay sane there in quarantine. So,
yeah, thank you guys. It was awesome to be on here and talk with you guys, and yeah, hopefully come back on sometime, maybe when we're out of quarantine and our lives are a bit more interesting.
Fair.
Sounds good.
Hopefully soon. Thanks, Matt.
Hopefully soon.
Like
thanks, guys.
All right. See you, Matt. So if you guys get lost, remember, go online, check out that audio guide and transcript, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Woo! That was good.